Hello and welcome to EduPod 4. I'm Frank with Edu Passports, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Barun, who is joining me from the UAE. He and I are going to talk about the education industry in East Asia, where he has a lot of experience. I might give some experience from South America and also the Middle East. So before further ado, Barun, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about yourself and your story.
Hey Frank, thanks a lot for having me. So I'm Barun. I'm from Canada, Ottawa to be specific, and I've been abroad since 2009. I first taught in Korea for about 7 years, and then I transferred over to Japan for 4 years, and then 1 year here in Abu Dhabi in the UAE. So it's been quite the journey.
Awesome, awesome. So let's go right back to the beginning. And can you tell me a little bit about why did you first decide to move to literally the other side of the world?
Yeah, for sure. I remember I was halfway through my university career when I started seeing posters just like pasted all over campus, kind of touting like teach English overseas, like free rent and like plenty of perks, good salary. So it really caught my attention because, growing up, the only trips that we would do would just be to see like distant relatives, always in the same country. So I didn't really feel like I got, like a real travel experience. So that was something that I felt was really missing in my life. So yeah, the idea to be able to go to a different country, be immersed in the culture and get paid, while I'm there, was really appealing. So yeah, that's really what pushed me to head out all the way to Korea.
Yeah, yeah. So similar. It reminds me of when I was at university in the UK, and someone came in to give a talk about the CELTA course. For people who don't know, that's like a very intense become an English teacher course. And I decided it just kind of lit a spark inside that, oh, do you know what? I would like to just live abroad for maybe a year or a few months. And I feel like you have a similar story where you've decided, oh, I'll do it for a year, bit of an adventure, and then, for you, 10 years. For me, this was back in 2019, and our lives are still kind of all over the world as a result of that decision.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like it's, just a really addicting lifestyle, like to be able to experience different things. And then not only that, when you travel or sorry, when you move to a different country, of course, you're not going to just stay in that country. You'll probably want to explore different countries around. And that's exactly what I've done, as I'm sure you have as well. And, that's what makes having this lifestyle like really exciting. And it makes it hard to like, give that up and, so settle down, as they say. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's very difficult to go back when you get back to your home country and then you think about all those places that you've built up a life that you have to leave it all behind. And the
Right.
longer you stay out, the harder it is to give it up, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
We're talking about a world way before Edu Passport where trying to find an ESL or a job as an educator in any country was a little bit more complicated. So, how was it
hmm
for you when you were first looking for a job in East Asia? How did you figure out which jobs to trust? And what was the experience like before Edu Passport existed?
I mean, I would say it was definitely like a bit more difficult. I remember there was one particularly famous site that a lot of people used in Korea, where the listings, they kind of just look like, really sketchy Craigslist ads, like with like all caps or like, every like squiggly that you could think of that could, shows up on a keyboard. It was just ridiculous. Like it just felt like spam. So you had to be really, really careful. I was very lucky that I actually had a connection that I was able to go through. But if I was just going into it, out of the blue without any connections, it was definitely an intimidating experience, and a lot of people did actually fall for scams. So the fact that we have websites like EduPassport that, like work really hard at, providing transparency and honest listings, I think that's a big game changer for anyone considering this lifestyle today.
Yeah, I think me and you maybe we have a little bit of a similarity that, we're willing to move across the world for something that's, not 100% certain. Luckily, you had a connection. But I feel like a huge barrier to entry to a lot of people is you're moving all the way to another country and another continent. and you're not 100%. You want to be more than 100% sure that the job you're applying to exists, where it is, whether the salary is going to be enough, all of that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like the situation where you want the most clarity, and it's
Hmm.
kind of the industry where you get almost the least clarity on what's going to happen to you.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. And I think, right, like you said, like you're hurtling halfway across the world. Like you really do need some kind of assurance that, so, it is important to have these kind of platforms today.
So tell me about your experience in Korea and then Japan. Well, first of all, did you like it?
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't stay somewhere for 7 years unless you like it. I would hope, right? At least that was my experience. I thought I was only going to be there for a year, and I spent 7 years there, right? So,
Hmm.
and I don't know, my trajectory was a little bit unconventional, I think, compared to a lot of other people, where my first year I worked at basically a cram school, like an after
Hmm.
school program, which is very common in Korea and East Asia in general. And then my second year, I was teaching at universities. And then by my third year, I was actually teaching for a world famous testing program where I had the opportunity to teach professional adults at the Hyundai Motors factory in Korea.
Oh.
So, and then from there, it just, just had so many different opportunities. So it was just really interesting to see, even though I originally went to teach English, um, and I just thought I would be doing it at a small school or not even a school, like an after school, just
Hmm.
seeing like how that progressed, over the years. So yeah, it was really interesting. Japan, I was teaching again at another after school, but this one was really highly advanced. It was similar to like Montessori schools that you
Hmm.
find in other parts of the world. So it was like very highly advanced. It was very selective with which students they allowed in. It was kind of open classroom style. It was really, really interesting. The owner, he actually modeled it after like Norwegian like schooling style. So that was honestly like really enjoyable. The students were really high level, like, pretty well behaved.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did that for 4 years, which to be honest was like the one of the longest times I've stayed at one particular school for that amount of time, just because I like simply enjoyed it so much. So yeah, it was really rewarding.
That's awesome. I think so many people would be really interested in what it's like to, well, first of all, visit Korea and Japan, but more than that, to actually work there. Were there any culture shocks when you got to South Korea that you were not expecting about the work culture? And and then the same question for Japan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that part of the world is quite famous for, you know, working a lot. And that's exactly what I was kind of thrown into
Hmm.
when I first arrived into Korea. I arrived a week before Christmas, and that winter period was actually like a high season for after schools because, oh, they don't have to go to public school. What are the parents going to do with
Hmm.
them? Put the kids into an after school, keep them busy, keep them like, on their studies. So I was working, I would have to report to work at 9 in the morning, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't finish work until about 9:45 in the
Oof.
evening. Yeah, and so that was what I did for my first month straight. So it was definitely like just jumping right into the fire. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it was a challenge at first, but I definitely wasn't like that for the rest of the time. Once you're out of
Hmm.
high season, it's kind of regular hours, like just like 4 p.m. to like 9:45 p.m., which was one of my favorite things about teaching, in East
Hmm.
Asia, was that the hours were relatively short for the pay. You did get, free rent.
Hmm.
You did pay utilities, but they were very inexpensive. So the perks definitely outweighed, like, the
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, when you arrived in Korea, you didn't speak Korean, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, no, you're absolutely correct. I didn't speak a single bit of Korean. I actually, okay, so there was a book left behind in my
Hmm.
apartment from the previous English teacher, and it
Hmm.
was called Survival Korean. And then on the
Hmm.
cover, it said, learn how to read and write Korean in 4 hours. And I was like, "Psh, there's no way. That's crazy. No, I don't think so." And I remember not touching the book for like 6 months, right? And I think 6 months, after 6 months, it was like a rainy weekend. And I was like, you know what? I don't have anything else to do. Let's see if this book is for reals. And yeah, to be honest, it really did take 4 hours. It's four chapters.
Wow.
Each chapter is an hour. And then by the end of the 4 hours, yeah, you can learn how to read and write Korean. It's actually really easy. So, and that was a game changer. It really was. I was like, why did I not do this from like month one? Like, I was so mad at myself, but yeah, it really changed the game. And even to this day, I still remember how to read and write Korean like really well. And even speaking Korean, it made it a lot easier. So I still know more Korean than I know Japanese, even though Korea was like way, way back when I was there. So yeah,
That's amazing. That's amazing because for me, Korean, for example, coming from an English speaker is very intimidating. I mean,
yeah,
it's very different. So the fact that you can learn it
right.
so quickly, I think, would take a weight off a lot of people's minds. You'll have to recommend that book.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
we can
sure.
up
Hey,
the
man, when you got 4 free hours, let me know. You'll
yeah,
learn
yeah.
Korean over a weekend, right?
I would love to do that. I genuinely would.
Yeah.
I think that that's a big thing when people move abroad. Like you are moving to a country where everything is in a different language. I mean, that goes without saying.
Hmm.
But small things make a huge impact on your life. When I first moved abroad, I moved to Argentina and I moved to Buenos Aires. I didn't speak Spanish at all,
Okay.
and even going to like the supermarket was like gave me a huge anxiety because they'd always ask at the checkout whether I had like a member's card for the supermarket,
Hmm.
and I thought
Hmm.
they were asking for whether I wanted to pay with card. And I would hold up the queue for like 10 minutes trying to go back and forth, and all these people would be shouting at me, trying to get me to hurry up. Like, this is just a small
Right.
thing, like going to the shops, but every time there was something really simple they'd say that you wouldn't understand.
Right.
And once you get
Right.
past that barrier, it's like probably how you felt when you did that 4 hours of Korean. It's like like the whole country kind of opens up for you
Exactly.
to kind of enjoy and all of the things that you kind of miss out when you don't speak the language.
For sure. Yeah. Actually, that's interesting you mentioned the supermarket because I had an experience. It was my first month in Korea and
Hmm.
just kind of wandering the supermarket, just, checking out all this like foreign, to me kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then suddenly realizing, oh, hey, I need to use the restroom. And then not knowing the word for restroom and nobody
Hmm.
spoke English there. And just, I remember running up to like an attendant and being like, washroom. She didn't understand. And then I'm thinking, okay, washroom, like rubbing my hands, pretend like I'm washing my hands. And she was like, ah. And then she has me follow her and she takes me to the hand soap aisle. And I'm like, oh, come
Oh,
on.
no.
Yeah.
This
So yeah, it's awesome like hearing different like expats like, struggles with like languages in
mhm.
different countries.
That's funny. That was the one that always stuck out to me is supermarkets. I just never got this question that they were asking me before when I went to pay, and it happened every time at every supermarket. I mean, after a few months, I got it, and then it was like the membership card, and I realized you just have to say no. But before it was like I was searching through my credit cards. They were like, no, not that credit card. I was like, oh, they don't accept this one. So I've got to find a different one. I was like, cash. And then, they're saying no, like they don't accept cash.
Oh
I mean, it
wow.
was like a eureka moment. No, but they do. But I thought they were asking for they were asking for the member card. So it was like
Right.
this eureka moment when I learned this. And but yeah, it's a small thing, but
Well,
the
did you end
language
up
thing is
getting the
huge.
membership card? Did you ever
I
get it?
never got the membership. I never got the
Ah,
membership card. I know I should have. I should have.
right.
I no, I didn't. But I did learn to say no. Even before they asked the question, I immediately said no every time. After that, I was like
Okay.
traumatized. I was like, don't want to hear it again.
Right.
But
That's fair.
but
Yeah.
it's that situation like you were saying that you're it's complete other world where you're in a place where no one speaks your language. So and it happens to anyone from any country. If they move to another country, they're going to have that. And I mean, anyone using Edu Passport will be more than familiar
Mhm.
with this
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
But
For sure.
it's a problem. I wouldn't say a problem. I would say it's like a really fun challenge of moving abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I hope people don't let that like stop them from like moving abroad, right? Because that it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's a challenge, but it's it's something that's easy to overcome, and yeah,
Yeah.
so it's all part of the experience.
Okay, so in terms of how you found these jobs abroad in these different schools, how do you see the future of this industry now that Edu Passport exists? Do you think that it will lead to more people and more trustworthy jobs, or how do you think that the future of the moving abroad to educate industry? What does it look like?
I think it definitely removes that obstacle, or at least it helps remove that obstacle of like uncertainty.
Hmm.
I think it's definitely something that should allow a little bit more assurance, to be able
Hmm.
to have something that's clear cut, and coming from a source that, you can trust, that they've vetted, with whatever education business has like listed this job. So, because that's something that was missing from when I was searching for jobs abroad. So yeah, like I think that's really important, right? Transparency,
Hmm.
so that you know what to expect. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because I think I know the company you're referring to when you were looking for jobs in Korea. Um, but and the finding a job at the moment, if you try and find, it's like it's almost impossible to really know where to look if you don't already have a lot of experience. When you're going
Yeah,
to Asia to become an educator, or you're moving from country to country in Asia, once you have a little bit of a foothold and you get to know how the industry works, it's a little bit easier. But for example, in my case, I went to Argentina, and it's doesn't even have the kind of setups that they have in Asia, where they some countries will pay for your flights, will pay for your accommodation.
right.
You have established companies.
Hmm.
Latin America is literally like the Wild West. It's just kind of you just have to turn up and
Okay.
ask around and try and find something, and there's no
Wow.
qualifications asked for, or
Wow.
and like I think once EduPassport grows and becomes a global country, it's really going to open up certain markets that people perhaps don't think about when it comes to English teaching, on top of
Hmm.
the established ones uh, that there already are. In South America in general, I did not meet a lot of people who moved there to teach English, and the people who did
Okay.
were kind of jumping around from kind of part-time jobs, uh, private students, institutes, and stuff, but always very under the table, always very
Hmm.
dodgy, always on tourist
Right.
visas, no official contracts.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that it will create somewhere that is very easy for companies to properly express themselves and sell themselves to educators, and on a site that is professional and looks professional. And that's a huge game changer, because trying to find jobs, even if the job looks great, because of the setting that it's in on some of these
Yeah,
websites that are very dodgily put together, it makes them very difficult to trust. So
for
more
sure.
trust,
For
more
sure.
trustworthy, more people who feel like, oh, actually, a lot of people might not want to move abroad to do something that they don't completely trust.
Hmm.
So having a site that creates a trust, I think that it could lead to a boom of people, and perhaps in countries that were not before considered big kind of education hubs.
Yeah, no,
But
for sure.
who knows what the future might bring? I mean, it's one of those things, very difficult to predict. Something that's trying to do something as big as Edu Passport, it could have a lot of effects, a lot of different effects,
I mean,
depending on the country.
I'm pretty optimistic. I think it's definitely a move in the right direction, right? So I think
Yeah.
I have a lot of things that I'm expecting from EduPassport in the future. And I think ultimately it's going to be something that we want to see. Like I want to see, like some
Hmm.
that it becomes like a household name, right? Like certain
Yeah.
other job boards that everybody knows. EduPassport is something that I want to see that at least educators, and like friends and families of educators, well,
Hmm.
somebody will know that like, hey, you're looking for a teaching job, check out EduPassport. So
Yeah.
that's where I want to see this, transform into.
Yeah, 100%. I also feel like the education industry is quite specific because even if on LinkedIn, for example, I'll double check if we can mention that or not. But on LinkedIn, for example, even looking for teaching jobs on LinkedIn, unless they're very like kind of high caliber established jobs, you might find them on LinkedIn. But if you're just starting and you want to find a job somewhere and you want to go to just travel and to maybe it's not like a super um, a super how would you say, like a very prestigious school or something like that. You
Okay.
just want to go and travel abroad.
Yeah.
Those jobs are not very common to find on LinkedIn, for example. So you really need
Mm,
a site that's like dedicated to this
right.
specific thing because it's not like
Hmm.
normal jobs. They're very often short contracts. You go for a year because a lot of people want to just teach for a year,
Right.
and
Right.
so you'd really need a dedicated site for this
Yeah.
because it's not
Sure.
the same as looking for a job in the city that you live in.
And on the other side, right, looking at it from the other shoe, not just from like the
Hmm.
teacher's perspective, but like you said, okay, well, what if there's this school like in the countryside of Korea, that wants to advertise this 1 year contract,
Hmm.
right? And obviously advertising something costs money. We like, these businesses, it would be great to, for EduPassport to show them like, listen, we are a trustworthy source. We are a source that
Hmm.
teachers trust, educators trust. So, you should be posting your jobs with us, right? So we want to create it for both sides to show them that it is a trustworthy site, that's vetted, that's, has a lot of people working on it to make sure that they're bringing reliable, jobs,
Hmm.
to educators as well as providing a reliable space for education businesses to post their jobs that people will be looking for. So yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think the edu profiles and the edu business profiles that were recently released are going to be a huge game changer because it's the only site, it's
Exactly.
specifically for teachers. So you can really see, and edu businesses, that you can really see from that page, on one page, exactly the kind of teacher, what experience, which countries they want to work in, what edu job they have. That's specifically for
Mm,
teachers. So people who know the education industry are going to be able to read it really easy. Whereas other sites, it's quite, most sites don't even have that profile seem, and other sites that do, it's quite
right.
difficult to sift through the information to get exactly the kind of person that you're looking for or exactly the kind of business that you're working for. So yeah, I think that will also
Mm,
make a huge difference.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so coming on to where you are now, you said you worked for 1 year in the Middle East. Can you tell me about that? How was your finding a job there, and what was your experience?
Yes, so I taught for a year here in Abu Dhabi, when I
Hmm.
first arrived. Although that wasn't too much of a challenge to get the job because it actually ended up being at the international school that my wife was already teaching at for a year. So she
Nice.
came here a year, yeah, so she came here a year
Hmm.
before me. I joined her like part way through her school year or her academic
Hmm.
school year, and then during that time when they needed substitute teachers, they would call me. So, they already kind of knew who I was. And then the next academic year, they had a position available to teach American history, coincidentally, as a
Nice.
Canadian. So,
I bet that for them, they were thinking, yeah, it's pretty much the same.
yeah, right. But it also gave me it was really fun teaching American history because it allowed me to, give them the perspective as like a third party to be like,
Hmm.
technically the textbook says this. Like it was an American issued textbook that I was using
Hmm.
here at an American school in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I had the flexibility to say, hey, listen, so the textbook says this, but please, like, I invite you guys to
Hmm.
do some external research to like find some
Yeah.
different sources. So it was, it was really cool because, yeah, anyways, it was a really rewarding experience in
Hmm.
that sense. And, a lot of the students were very receptive. You do, of course, have some students that aren't exactly, optimal when it comes to
Hmm.
behavior, especially here in this region. Um,
Okay.
but uh, but overall, it was a really great experience. And teaching, it was middle school, so it was grade eight.
Hmm.
So they're old enough that you can have conversations with them, and the comprehension level is there. Like everyone here speaks English, so Yeah, it was
Hmm.
really fun. Um, so I did that for a year, and then yeah, just transitioning into like different roles outside of just teaching alone. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
that 1 year here was really nice.
Awesome. And did you get any chances to kind of beef up Canada in the American textbooks?
I definitely
This
made
part they
sure
said
to.
about Canada is not exactly true. Actually,
I absolutely emphasize the fact that Canada beat the U.S. in the War of
that
1812. So yeah,
that was a whole 6 month part of the syllabus. You expanded it.
right. Well, I mean, technically, and then you would have like like the teacher's pet be like, sir, actually, it wasn't really Canada yet. It was actually the UK at the time. And I'm like, okay, okay,
Ah,
okay, but
cut that out.
yeah, right.
Ah.
Yeah,
Yeah. This reminds me of when I was teaching in Argentina. It was a little bit less formal than this, but I was working for these camps, and we had native speakers, native English speakers were that was the kind of selling point, is that all of these teachers, they come from countries where English is the mother tongue. So you're going to be,
right.
and it was me, one other British guy, a Russian girl, a guy from Colombia, a girl from Bulgaria. These were the mother English speakers, and we all had to say we were British. I mean, they were all people who spoke English very very well,
Yeah.
but in order to keep up the selling point, we all had to say that we were British. So, and
Wow.
none of the students noticed. But
Really.
that is the kind of stuff I do not encourage. That kind of business practice. But that was the kind of job I fell into. If EduPassport existed, I would never have fallen into this dodgy business in
Right.
Argentina. They tied it back.
Exactly.
Okay, just to finish off, we'll call it a day after
Yeah.
this. Um, what would your advice be for anyone who is looking to move to another country or to start a career in education in general?
Now. Yeah, okay, that's a great question. I think what I would say is that you have a lot of great resources now, in 2024
Hmm.
that I didn't have back in 2009, right? So definitely make sure that you're making use of those resources. Definitely EduPassport, check out EduPassport, but you do have a variety of resources that you want to, use and cross-reference. Luckily, that cross-referencing it is not really as important when you're using EduPassport because it is a vetted service. So
Hmm.
that, you have a big leg up with that. Outside of that, I would say, aim like definitely do some research into the country. Think about what your interests are. If you're interested in nature, like greenery, things like that, maybe don't come to the Middle East. We do have really nice weather right now in like the winter season, but between May, I would even say mid-April until end of October, it is insanely hot and humid. That's the big
Hmm.
misconception. People think it's dry heat. No, it's extremely humid, above 40 degrees every day. So, you really can't go outside to do much. So if think about that. Whereas if
Hmm.
you like a more modern lifestyle, like you like malls, you like, like amusement parks and things like that, this is a great place for that. But also think about what region of the world would you like to explore more of? Because, if
Hmm.
you're the adventurous type, you're going to want to, on your teacher's breaks, on your teacher's holidays and national holidays, explore like a nearby country. Why not, right? So think about what part of the world you'd like to see more of. If you want to see more of Eastern Asian or Southeast Asian culture, try to look for a job over there in that region, right? So you
Hmm.
can jump out and see other stuff in that area. What about you, Frank?
Hmm.
What would you suggest?
I think all of that is perfect. Yeah, you have to think about what kind of place you want to live in and what kind of place you want to explore and get to know. I would also say to people that just do it. I mean, like, I feel like a lot of people are hesitant. It's a huge decision, and it's possible to kind of analyze. But at the end of the day, both me and Barun have a story where we were educators. We didn't have a plan for beyond the first year, and it's taken us in ways and places that you never expected. So taking that first step is really important. Try and think of where you want to go, but don't wait forever. Try and get out there and do it, and you never know where you're going to end up. Now for example, now I'm a social media manager and content creator, and that all stems from moving abroad to become an educator. And Barun has a similar story. So you never know where your life's going to go, but it will lead you somewhere interesting for sure.
Exactly.
There you go. All right. Thank you for listening. Go and follow us on social media at EduPassports across Instagram. You can find us on TikTok, X, all over the place, Facebook, and check out our website. And if you have any questions, leave a comment on this if you're listening on YouTube, or send us a message. Go and find us on Instagram, send us a message, tell us what you thought of the podcast. And thank you for listening.
Perfect. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Frank. I appreciate it.